Hi everyone, this is Charmander, and in this video, I'm gonna do a hero tier list for infantry heroes in Doomsday Last Survivor. So the first hero that I'm gonna be ranking is actually going to be Tom, and I'm putting Tom in B tier. Now, the reason why Tom is B tier is because he is a police station hero, so he's fairly accessible. Now, one of the things that is an important criteria for me when ranking these heroes is A, if you are an infantry main and these are your must use heroes that you have to get them because they are so important as someone that is an infantry main to succeed in this game. The second criteria is if you are not infantry main but you would like to have one squad or two squad of infantry heroes, then this would be your go-to infantry heroes for your squads. So the good thing about Tom is he's very accessible early in the game as a result of the police station. There's also various events in the game like Island Raid where you can get boxes with Tom's fragments, making him quite easy to level up if he is your designated police station hero to use those boxes in those specific events. If you're just collecting his fragments purely from police station, then he would actually be not so good of a hero, but because you can get those boxes from outside the police station, then he is actually more accessible and useful early in the game. Now his first skill, Power Crash, deals a damage factor of up to 6,000 and healing factor of up to 4,000 with reduction in damage taken by 15%. So his first skill is already really good from a defensive standpoint because he will keep your infantry troops alive. He's actually really good to be partnered up with heroes like Thunder to stay alive longer, Adat to make her stay longer in battle, and not so bad with Raigoro as well. His next skill is called Double Quarterback. It's the squad counterattacks have 10% chance to deal bonus damage up to 4,000. This effect can be triggered once every 3 seconds. So this one is just okay. Next one is Special Defense. It's a passive skill that increases infantry squad defense by up to 15% and HP by up to 15%. Again, this is pretty decent overall. And then his fourth skill is called Absolute Defense. It has a passive skill of increasing healing effect by up to 30% when garrisoning, increases infantry squad defense by up to 18%. So this one is specifically good because of the increase in healing effect. So if you stack him with Thunder and you use them in the arena or other places where you need someone to stay alive for a long time, they're not dealing a lot of damage, but they just won't die, which is super annoying. And when you awaken him, his skill is called Lion's Roar, which enhances Power Crash, and the damage factor would then go up to 7,200, reduces target's damage by 15% for the next 3 seconds, and heals slightly wounded units in your squad with a heal factor of up to 4,800. Also reduces damage taken by you and nearby allies for up to 5 squads instead of just 3 squads by 15% for 3 seconds. So overall, Tom is a really good, accessible early game infantry hero. Later on in the game, he's still okay because if you have a squad of 5 people and you need a hero to fill in the gaps, he can still be useful from that perspective. So he never truly loses his usefulness throughout the game. Next hero on the list is going to be Raigoro. And for Raigoro, I'm going to be putting him at rank A, but only specifically if you pair him up with Riven, which I'll go into detail later on. And as of the new heroes being introduced, he is also a decent partner with Bala. So if you look at Raigoro's skill, his first one is called Guardian Deity, and it activates a shield that absorbs damage for 3 turns for up to 9,600, and Raigoro also recovers 20 rage for every enemy that attacks him, up to 60 rage per turn. So this one is amazing because it gives him so much shield that it takes a while to kill him because he has that extra shield that must be destroyed first before actually damaging him. His second skill is called Yorikiri, which is a passive skill that increases squad counter damage by up to 20%. When attack reduces the attacker's travel speed by up to 25%, this lasts for 5 seconds. This effect can be triggered once in 10 seconds. So this one is not bad, especially in the field when the enemy's trying to run away and they hit you and then suddenly they get slowed down. Counter damage is also not bad if you pair him up with Riven, who has counter damage as well. So that's going to benefit both of these heroes. The third skill is called Oshidashi, and it's a passive skill that increases the infantry squad attack by up to 15% and the defense by up to 15%. So overall, this is a solid skill just because of the increased damage dealt to the enemies as well as the increase in defense. His fourth skill is called Yokozuna, which is a passive skill that increases damage dealt by up to 16% when a shield is activated. When garrisoning, increases infantry infantry squad HP by up to 11%. I think this is actually his worst skill, even though technically on paper it sounds good, and mainly because you can only use it when he's doing garrison, or an increased damage only works when his shield is activated. So if he doesn't have any shield, then he's not dealing as much damage. Last but not least, his awakened skill is called Storm Possession, which is a skill enhancement of Yorikiri, and after awakening, reduces damage taken by squads by 5% and increases squad counter damage by 30%. When attack, reduces the attacker's travel speed by 30 seconds for 5 seconds. This effect can be triggered only once in 10 seconds. So overall, a solid awakened skill. Next on the list is Robert, and I'm actually going to be putting Robert at D. Okay, now that sounds really harsh because if you look at his stats, he doesn't seem that bad on paper, right? His first skill is called Heartbreak Rock, and it can deal damage to a target for up to 12,500 damage and reduces target's HP for up to 25% for 2 seconds. So that is an amazing debuffing skill, right? Next, there's Lucky Shield, increases infantry attack by up to 20%. 16% of the damage absorbed by the shield will be deflected and dealt to the enemy. So not a bad skill, just average. Next, there's Eternal Grove, which is a passive skill. When using basic attacks, there's a 20% chance to grant the shield to oneself and allied for 2 seconds with a shield factor of up to 2,400. This effect can be triggered only once in 6 seconds. So the problem with this one is the shield factor is not bad, right? But it's just not as good as the newer heroes that was released like Bala, and Raigoro can provide more shield. So this guy's a little bit confused because is he dealing damage or is he doing defensive stuff? Because he's kind of stuck in the middle ground and he's decent in all areas, but just not good enough to kind of justify putting him in your squad unless you're one of those weird people that has 5 infantry squads. And in that case, okay, sure, have him in your lineup. Next, there's Devil's Disguise, which is a passive skill. Counterattacks have 20% chance to burn the enemy for 3 seconds, dealing damage every second, with a damage factor of up to 1,200. This effect can be triggered only once in 6 seconds per target. I have never seen this ability make any difference in the battlefield at all. And when you awaken him, he gets a new skill called Blazing Passion. It increases burn damage dealt to squad inflicted with HP reduction by additional 50%. So actually this awakened skill is pretty good, I would say. But I would still put him at D just because there's so many other heroes that's so much better than him with multiple utilities that I just can't justify putting him in your squad unless you already have him and you've already invested in him. Next hero on the list is Thunder. So he used to be the best at Garrison, but nowadays I think I would put him at A, just because he gets beaten up more easily nowadays. He's still useful and he's still really good at Garrison, so he hasn't completely fallen off the tier list here, but he's just not S anymore. He's just an A, unlike before. His first skill is really good. It's called Super Thunder, recovers HP every 5 seconds with a healing factor of up to 2,800. Reduces attack of up to 3 squads in a fan-shaped area ahead by up to 30% for 2 seconds. Reduces rider attack by an additional 15%. So as you can see, the HP recovery one specifically is one of the best part of his first skill. Second one is called Arm Fortification, increases infantry HP by up to 30% and defense by up to 10%. Again, this is why he's such a good defender, is because of the high HP and high defense. So Gutsy Stunt is a passive skill that reduces squad's damage received from a basic attack by up to 30% and increases counter damage by up to 22%. So overall, a solid skill that Thunder has. His fourth skill is called Secret Base. It's a passive skill that while doing Garrison, reduces all damage taken by up to 12%. Has a 10% chance to recover HP by up to 2,200 when counter attacking. Can be triggered once every 6 seconds. Again, another solid skill that Thunder has. When awakened, he gets a new skill called Role Model, which is a passive skill that increases damage for you and nearby allies by 15% after using a skill. This lasts 2 seconds and affects up to 3 squads. So as you can see, Thunder is still a solid, really good hero, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to invest in him if you already have him. The keyword is if you already have him, because if you don't have him already, you might want to invest in another hero that does the same job as him, which is Garrison, which we'll talk about later. Next hero on the list is Miyamoto. I'm actually going to be putting Miyamoto in A. Now, a lot of people will put him at S. You could argue that he is S tier. Maybe the best way to describe him is actually A plus tier, because he's usually paired up with a dot, but when you don't partner him up with a dot, I'm not sure if he's actually S tier, but let's look at his stats. His first skill is called Two Heavens as One, which is a rage skill that deals damage to up to 3 enemy squads in a fan-shaped area in front with a damage factor of up to 13,000. Damage taken by each enemy squad reduced by 20% for each additional target enemy squad. So as you can see, this is quite a huge damage factor that Miyamoto has. Next skill is called Defense Posture. When leading only infantry squads, damage increases by up to 12%. Counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce enemy HP by up to 27% for 3 seconds. This is an amazing skill, mainly because of the debuff that he's providing here. Next, there's Swift Momentum, which is a passive skill where infantry squad attack increases by up to 30% and travel speed increases by up to 15%. A very very solid skill, especially the squad travel speed, but the infantry squad attack is also amazing. His fourth skill is called Quick Draw Technique, which is a passive skill that increases squad defense by up to 20%. Counterattacks have a 20% chance to reduce skill damage dealt by the enemy by 28% for 3 seconds. So again, a very solid skill. This is why Miyamoto is still a solid A in my eyes. Now, his awakened skill is called 5 Rings, which is a skill enhancement of swift momentum. And after awakening, the infantry squad attack increases by 40% and travel speed by 25%. So this is an amazing skill when you awaken Miyamoto. And I'll leave him at A here, but he's really an A plus hero. The next hero on the list is going to be a Dot. Now, in my opinion, a Dot is definitely an S tier hero. A lot of older players are saying she's not as good as she used to be. I completely disagree. A Dot is the first hero I ever awakened, and I'm not even infantry main. I am range main, and having a Dot in my party is so helpful. She is so versatile, and I'll explain shortly why. So her first skill is called Firepower Assault, and it deals damage to a target with a damage factor of 12,000, increases your squad's defense by up to 30 seconds for 3 seconds. So again, she's very tanky while dealing a lot of damage. Her second skill is called Queens of Arms, increases infantry squad attack by up to 11% every 5 seconds until reaching 44% attack. This is sick. The longer a Dot stays in battle, the stronger she becomes. That's why she's highly good being paired up with a hero that allows her to stay in battle for a long time. Next skill is called Steer Clear, which is a passive skill that increases infantry squad's travel speed by up to 30%. If the damage reduction debuff is active in your squad, there is a 50% chance to nullify the debuff and heal your squad with a healing factor of 4,400. So not only is she moving fast, she has some healing factor as well. Her fourth skill is called Perseverance, which is a passive skill that increases infantry squad attack by up to 40% if the remaining squad size is greater than 50%. While battling on the world map, increases defense by 40% if the remaining squad size is smaller than 50%. So she does more damage when she's still in really good health, and when she's below 50% and lower in health, then she has more defense, which is good actually, because you're probably trying to run away at this point and you don't want to die. So when you're running away, then that extra defense will keep you alive longer while you're trying to get back to your shelter. Her awakened skill is a new skill called Tribal Pride. It's a passive skill that upon receiving skill damage, reduces skill damage received by you and nearby allies by 20% for 2 seconds. Can be triggered once every 6 seconds, can affect up 5 squads. So again, this is a really good skill to increase her defensive capabilities as well as the other people in your squads. Now, I say that she's an S because of the versatility, because early game, you can easily pair a Dot with Charlie, and Charlie is an elite hero, and even though he's purple, he can help you generate a lot of rage, which will help a Dot fire her skill damage more frequently. And you can pretty much partner a Dot with so many different heroes. She can be partnered with Thunder for longer longevity, as well as Tom for a budget version of Thunder. Obviously, her amazing partner would be Miyamoto because of the damage that they both produce, as well as the speed that they both have when combined together. She's also really good with the new hero Bala, which we'll talk about shortly later on, just because he also keeps you alive for a long time. The next hero on the list is going to be Eddie, and Eddie is actually an S tier hero, especially now with the new heroes available. Now, I personally don't have Eddie yet, but let's look at his skill anyways. So his first skill is called Grand Feast, which deals damage to target with a damage factor of up to 11,300 and gains shield for 2 seconds with a shield factor of up to 2,500. So decent damage and decent shield factor. It's not his best skill though, and we're going to go over that as we go along this list. Next, there's Crisis Cook, which is a passive skill that increases infantry defense by up to 30% when your remaining squad size is less than 30%, increases counter damage by up to 15%. So this is really good for staying alive if you're trying to run away from the enemy, while also dealing damage back when they're trying to hit you. So overall, it's a okay skill, but I wouldn't say this is one of his best ones. His third skill is called Brash Hunter, which is a passive skill when leading only infantry squad, increases counter damage dealt by up to 44%. So this is hands down one of his best skill because of that huge counter damage. If you combine him with a new hero Stella, their counter damage is insane, absolutely insane. They are actually the perfect match together. This is why he's actually an S tier, mainly because of the new hero Stella, because together they are absolutely unstoppable. The fourth skill is called Abyss Devourer, and this is a passive skill that increases infantry squad HP by up to 30%. During sieges, basic attacks have 20% chance to reduce the enemy's HP by up to 25% for 2 seconds. This effect can be triggered at most once every 6 seconds. So this is an amazing skill during sieges, and he's going to be definitely a siege hero in the future because of Stella. And not only are they only doing so much counter damage, he's also debuffing the enemy at the same time while becoming extra tanky as a result of the extra squad HP. Last but not least, there's Ravenous Ambition, which is a new skill. It's a passive skill when shield is broken or disappears. Reduce the HP of up to 3 nearby enemy squad by 20% for 2 seconds. Again, another amazing debuff. So as a result, because of Stella's introduction to this game, Eddie is now officially an S tier hero because you are going to have to use them both as mandatory heroes if you are an infantry main player. The next hero on the list is going to be Riven, and I'm going to put Riven at S because she right now is the best garrison hero for infantries in the game. And let's look at her skill set. So the first one is called Raining Punches, which deals damage to target every 4 seconds with a damage factor of up to 3,900 if garrisoning increases squad defense by up to 32% for 3 seconds. So as you can see, she is very tanky when she's doing garrison, and actually her rage skill is extremely strong. Next, there's Prosthetic Arm, which is a passive skill that increases infantry squad HP by up to 30%. When in alliance territory, infantry squad defense increases by 15%. So again, this makes her extra tanky and defensive, making her perfect for doing garrison. Next, there's Indomitable Soul, which is a passive skill that increases squad attack by up to 24%. Counterattacks have a 20% chance to grant shield to oneself for 3 seconds with a shield factor of up to 1,700. This effect can be triggered once in 3 seconds. So this is a decent skill for Riven. I don't have anything bad to say about it. Her fourth skill is called Mighty Bear, and this is hands down her best skill actually. So this is a passive skill that adds up to 30% bonus to obtain shield. While the shield is active, counter damage is increased by up to 27%. So this is amazing because if you pair her up with Rigoro, their shield factor is so high because of the fact that she's adding bonus shield bonus. So her and Rigoro together are producing so much shield. You can also pair her up with Budala in the field and they're gonna have so much shield. It's so ridiculous. The counter damage is also pretty good, making her the second best choice for a siege partner with Stella when doing sieges. Obviously, Eddie's still the best for Stella as his partner, but Riven would be the second best. And when awakened, she gets a new skill called Great Ambition. This is a passive skill when taking skill damage, has a 50% chance to grant shield to oneself for 3 seconds with a shield factor of 2,000. This effect can be triggered only once in 6 seconds. So overall, a very good awakened skill. The next hero on this list, and it's going to be a little bit of a controversial opinion, is actually Marco and Eri. So I'm going to put them at S tier, but mainly if you actually take the time to awaken him during his event. And as of making this video, I think there's like 2 days left in the event. So you better hurry up and awaken him fast if you're watching this before the event. And if you're watching this after the event, I wouldn't say he's an S tier if you don't have his legendary hero fragments or you didn't even get him to begin with. I would actually put him lower because it costs double the amount of legendary hero fragments to level him up. I would put him at C if you didn't get him during the event and awaken him during the event. But if you got him during the event and you awaken him during the event, then he's S, okay? And let me explain why. His first skill is ridiculous. It's called Explosive Shots, which deals damage to the enemy target with the damage factor of up to 13,000 and reduces rage of up to 5 nearby enemies by up to 80. These effects can be triggered on the same target only once in 5 seconds. So not only is he dealing a lot of damage, he's reducing the rage of the person that he's attacking, which is really good. Next, there's Electronic Interference. Counterattacks have a 30% chance to reduce HP of up to 5 nearby enemies by up to 47% for 3 seconds. This effect can be triggered only once in 5 seconds. This is so ridiculous. Like if you attack this guy, he's gonna reduce your HP by 47%. That is so ridiculous. Basically, people are not gonna want to target Marco and Eri because of this debuff. However, if you pair him up with Bianca, which is his perfect partner, people have no choice but to target him because otherwise Bianca's gonna be buffing the hell out of your team. Marco and Bianca right now is considered the strongest field infantry pair squad, even though Bianca's technically not infantry, she is a leader hero. But right now, if you awaken Marco and Bianca, together they are the strongest at the moment. Next, there's Steel Armor, which is a passive skill that every 10 seconds grants a shield to oneself for 2 seconds with a shield factor of up to 3,300. Also reduces travel speed and damage of up to 5 nearby enemies by up to 35% and up to 16% damage reduction for 3 seconds. So again, this is a really amazing debuff that Marco and Eri is creating. There's also Slug Firepower, which is a passive skill that during field battles, squad attack increases by up to 27% and travel speed increases by up to 22%. So if you combine this with Bianca's speed, he's moving quite fast and his damage is definitely going to be increasing a lot. And also with Bianca, who has Rage Regeneration, Marco and Eri is going to be dealing a lot of damage while debuffing the hell out of the enemies. And his Awaken skill is a new skill called Rescue Reward. When taking skill damage, there is a 50% chance to restore HP up to 3 nearby enemies with a healing factor of 1600. This effect can be triggered only once in 5 seconds. So this is actually his worst skill. Fortunately, it's something that you get when you awaken him, so by default you'll have it if you just level up all 4 of his other skills. The next hero on the list is going to be Bala. So he's one of the new heroes as of making this video, and I'm gonna put Bala actually at A. And the reason why he's at A is because of multiple reasons. First, he's very accessible because you can get him most likely Lucky Roulette, and his first skill, called Gaining Enlightenment, gains a shield for 3 seconds with a shield factor of up to 10,800. That is a ridiculous amount of shield. When Bala's shield vanishes, deals the remaining 50% shield value as damage to up to 2 nearby enemies. So can you imagine how annoying this guy is? If you don't attack him, the shield is gonna damage you a lot. But if you attack him, the shield's gonna absorb your damage. So there's nothing you can do to stop this guy. He's just that annoying. And imagine if you partner him up with Riven, who actually makes the shield even bigger, how ridiculous the shield damage even becomes. His next skill is called 6 Faculties Purification, which is a passive skill. When not garrisoned, increases infantry squad defense by up to 32% and HP by up to 11%. So basically, this is just telling you that he's not a garrison hero. He is meant for the field, and he's going to be fighting the field, and he's going to be great to be partnered up in the field with Riven as well as Adat. His next skill is called Karma Cutting, which is a passive skill, and the counter attacks can remove up to 9 rage from the enemy and have a 20% chance to deal additional damage to the enemy with a damage factor of 1960. This one is just okay. His next skill is called Ephemeral Body and Mind, which is a passive skill with the infantry attack increased by up to 34%, while shield is active, reduce damage taken by up to 6.5%. What I don't like about this is the shield has to be active for the damage to be reduced. So when his shield is gone, he's taking extra damage. So I think this might be one of his worst skill. And finally, when you awaken him, which is an awakened skill called Boundless Dharma, skill enhancement of gaining enlightenment. After you awaken him, gains a shield for 3 seconds with a shield factor of 12,500. Again, this is just a ridiculous amount of shield. You partner him up with Riven, and they have an even bigger shield together. Partner up with Adat, and Adat will stay alive for a long time, causing a lot of damage because the longer Adat stays in battle, the stronger she becomes. Or you can even partner him up with Bianca, allowing Bianca to live for a long time, buffing the hell out of your team and really annoying your opponents. So again, this is a really good awakened skill. When Budala's shield vanishes, deals the remaining 50% shield value as damage to up to 3 nearby enemies. So that one is actually not that good. And last but not least, the last hero on the list is definitely an S tier hero. She is broken as hell. She is a siege hero. Her name is Stella. She's one of the new heroes coming up in Top Commander. And her first skill is called It's Showtime. It's a rage skill that deals damage to the enemy with a damage factor of up to 13,500 and increases own counter damage by up to 22,500 for 3 seconds. Oh my god, that's so much counter damage. That's ridiculous. If rallying, counter damage increases by up to 29%. That is so sick. There's so much counter damage, especially if you partner her up with Eddie. The counter damage is just ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. Next skill is called Battle Dance. It's a passive skill. Increases infantry squad attack by up to 32%. Counter attacks have a 30% chance to grant 1 stack of War Will to oneself, up to 2 stacks per second. This effect stack up to 10 times. Each stack of War Will reduces basic attack damage by up to 3%. So basically, if you can have 10 War Wills, that's a reduction of basic attack damage by up to 30%. Obviously, you need to have 10 of them. So by the time you get to 10, it's really 27% or less. But that is a lot of damage reduction, making her extremely tanky. Her third skill is called Concert Tour, which is a passive skill. During rallies, increases infantry squad HP by up to 26% and squad counter damage by up to 24%. Again, nothing else needs to be said. The counter damage is just ridiculous, as well as the HP buff, making her extra tanky. The next skill on the list is called Final Performance. It's a passive skill. When having 10 or more War Will stacks, clears all War Will stacks and deals damage to the enemy target by up to 11,200. So again, extra damage, which is sick. So she's doing double the damage. When own squad size is less than 50%, the damage increases by an additional 20%. That part is just okay. And last but not least, her awakened skill is called Encore, which is a new skill. It's a passive skill that increases counter damage by 21%. When War Will stacks are cleared, has a 20% chance to immediately gain 2 War Will stacks again. So again, this is just making her counter damage even significantly greater than it already is. And when you stack her with Eddie, they are just absolutely a monster. So that's about it for the infantry tier list. As you can see, most infantry is actually pretty good. Now, some people might argue with me that that poor Robert here shouldn't be at D, he should be at C. And you know what? You can put him at C if you want, or even B. But I don't think he's actually a B. He's more like a C because there's so many good heroes here. He's gonna be your last pick here. And whenever a hero is your last pick, he's gonna be at the bottom of the list. That's just the best way to say it. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.